Okay, this is 3.7b of algebra. So we are now going to use absolute values with compound inequalities. When I'm working with an and compound inequality, it is eating the number. When I'm working with an or compound inequality, it's eating my absolute values. You don't have to memorize that though, because you'll be able to tell when we solve them which way to graph it. So let's give it a shot. So I have the absolute value of 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so my absolute value is all alone, so I can go right away and make my two different equations. So my first equation, 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 5. So I have one positive 5, and then I need to make a negative 5, right? I have one positive equation, one negative equation. Here's the deal. When you are making your negative equation, you need to flip the sign. So it's now eating that negative 5. And then I'm just going to solve them. So I'm going to subtract 4. I get 2x is greater than or equal to 1. Divide by 2. And I get x is greater than or equal to 1/2 or 0.5. If I solve my other guy, I'm subtracting 4. I get 2x is less than or equal to negative 9. Divide it by 2. And I get x is less than or equal to negative 4.5. And then I need to graph them. So I will stick it over here. I've got negative 4.5. And I've got 0.5. Okay, on the 0.5, I've got a closed circle. And I also have a closed circle on my negative 4.5. And now I'm going to plug in numbers. So you can choose whatever number you want. Right here, 1 is to the right of it. So I'm just going to plug in 1. If I plug in 1 into this equation over here, I get 1 is greater than or equal to 0.5. 1 is bigger than 0.5. That is true. So I'm going to go this direction. And then I'm going to plug in. So negative 5 is over here. So I'm plugging into this equation over here. Negative 5 is less than or equal to negative 4.5. Would you rather owe someone $4.50 or $5? I'd rather owe $4.50. So this is true, and I'm going to go towards the negative 5. If you remember before what I said, if it's eating the absolute value, it's an or statement, and this one was eating the absolute value, and it is an or statement, so that makes sense. And that would be my answer. Okay, so story problems. Let's look at their problem first. A company makes boxes of crackers that should weigh 213 grams. A quality control inspector randomly selects boxes to weigh. Any box that varies from the weight by more than 5 grams is sent back. What is the range of allowable weights for a box of crackers? Okay. So if W is my actual weight of my box, so let's say my box is actually 215 grams. Okay, if it's actually 215 grams. If I wanted to figure out how close it is, if it's within 5 grams, then what I can do is I could do 215 minus 213. So, and this case, that's going to be a positive answer. That's a 2, right? So it was 2 away from it, 2 grams away from it. If it was 211, and I subtract the 213, I get a negative 2. So this is where I want my absolute values to come in. I'm going to put absolute values around this. So in our equation, you'll see over here, I've got the absolute value of W minus 213. And that needs to be smaller or equal to 5, right? The biggest I can be away is 5 grams. And then they solve it. Okay, so we're going to use that same setup for our own problem here. It says a food manufacturer makes 32-ounce boxes of pasta. Not every box weighs exactly 32 ounces. The allowable difference from the ideal weight is at most 0.05 ounces. That's the most they're allowed to be off. So, we'll use W again for our weight. I'm going to do W minus 32, how much it should be. And that needs to be less than or equal to 0.05. And then I can solve it. So remember, I wrote my two equations. One is going to be positive and one's going to be negative. So I have W minus 32 is less than or equal to 0.05. And when I make my negative one, so W minus 32, I need to flip the sign. It's greater than or equal to negative 0.05. And then I'll solve it. So I'm going to add 32 to both sides. And I get W is less than or equal to 32.05. And over here I add 32, and I get W is greater than or equal to 31.5. So I'm just going to graph it so we can get a picture of that. So there's not much. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be 31.95, my bad. Because it was only subtracting 0.05, not 0.5. So there's not a whole lot in between here. So I've got 32, and I've got 32.05. And over here I've got 31.95. Close circles at both of them, right? You can either plug in or you can look at these and just see which way it's eating. So in this one right here, it's eating the 32.05, so that should be the biggest. So I'd be going this direction. And over here it's eating the W. So I should be going away from the 31.5. Whoops. So this is in fact going to end up being an inequality. So anywhere between 31.95 and 32.05 is an acceptable weight. And there's your homework.